class, and today, after we are done with our Africa, we are going to the next part of our huge world, which is South Asia, and it's Unit 8 for us. You may ask me why we're not taking Unit 7. It's just because we need to compress some information, and I do believe that in your course of social studies before, when you studied the courses like for the better world or something like that, you studied Arab world quite a lot, and you know a lot about the lands that that are there and their problems and their their culture and stuff like that. Okay, so that's why we're not taking Unit 7. Okay, only if we have time we can go back to it, because for now it's time for us to study South Asia, something that you might not have taken before. uh, we will work today with two lessons or two chapters from the book. Okay, it's chapter 24, but there there are sub chapters 1, 2, 3, usually sometimes 4. Now, pages 551 to 563 are the pages that we're going to work right now, and off we go. Here comes the book if you don't have it. Okay, so I will keep the book on the screen all the time so that we can look at the maps while I'm telling and reading the stuff that needs to be told or read. Okay, now Unit 8, and this is the very beginning of the unit. It's page 538. Okay, and the material that we're going to start covering today starts on page 551. But what I really need you to do is to open your books on page 543. There you will see the physical map of the region of which we are going to talk today. Okay, this is the region, and here we are. Now, today, as I promised, we're going to start with landforms and resources. The typical routine, typical procedure. We always start countries with landforms and resources. Now, if you look at this map, the physical map of this region, South Asia, you will easily see that it has a lot of mountains, and the mountains are pretty brown, which means they are pretty high there, right? And these are the Himalayas. The Himalayas are part of South Asia, a region that includes 7 countries: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. Okay, so you can see them on this map, or you can even see them on this map as well. Okay, so now look again. India, can you see India? I hope you can. Okay, Pakistan, purple, Bangladesh, green. Okay, Nepal, this reddish color. Okay, next to India in the north. Sri Lanka, which is an island next to India, and the Maldives. The Maldives are here, and they're islands. Okay, all the country of Maldives is on these islands. Okay, okay. Now, and you see, by the way, that India goes like as a big piece, and then there is a neck which connects it to the smaller piece. And I don't remember if I read it now. Not Bhutan. Bhutan is here next to India. Okay, so but let's go to the physical map. South Asia is sometimes called a subcontinent, a large landmass that is smaller than a continent. In fact, it's often referred to as the Indian subcontinent because India dominates this region. Although South Asia is about half the size of the continental United States, It has more than 1 billion people living there. 1/5 of the world's population. I guess it's pretty much, right? As you saw, as you can see on this map, okay, natural barriers help to separate the South Asian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. These Himalayan mountains work as a barrier. The Himalayas and the other mountain ranges form the northern border where water surrounds the rest of the region. So, technically, it's cut from the rest of the world by mountains in the north and west and south, north, west and east, and seas and ocean, the Indian Ocean, in the west, east and south. Okay, so north mountains, east seas. The South Asian Peninsula, which extends south into the Indian Ocean, is bordered by the Arabian Sea to the west and the Bay of Bengal to the east. Millions of years ago, the land that is now South Asia was actually part of East Africa. You remember when we were talking about East Africa, even today some parts of East Africa are unrest and they kinda moving apart from the continent, moving slowly but still moving, okay? So about 50 million years ago, it split, this part of East Africa split off and drifted northward. As you can see in this illustration here we are, okay. As you can see in this illustration, it shows that this this subcontinent, collided with Central Asia. The gradual collision of these two large tectonic plates forced the land upward into enormous mountain ranges. These mountains, which are still rising, now form the northern edge of the South Asian subcontinent. Back to the map, please. The magnificent Himalayas are a system of parallel mountain ranges. They contain the world's highest mountains, with nearly 24 peaks rising to 24,000 feet or above. The Himalayas stretch for 1,500 miles and form a giant barrier between the Indian subcontinent and China. Can you see? Here. Huge barrier. Okay. Mount Everest is the world's tallest peak, sits at the heart of the Himalayas. Nestled high up within these mountains are the remote landlocked kingdoms of Nepal and Bhutan. You see, Nepal and Bhutan are almost entirely in the mountains. The Hindu Kush are mountains that lie at the west end of Himalayas. Here, Hindu Kush. They form a rugged barrier separating Pakistan from Afghanistan to the north. For centuries, the Hindu Kush stood in the way of Central Asian tribes trying to invade India. Bloody battles have been fought over control of major land routes through the mountains, including the Khyber Pass. The mighty Karakoram Mountains rise in the northeastern portion of the chain. Northeastern portion of the chain. Karakoram Range, Karakoram Mountains, here. They are the home of the world's second largest peak, K2, right here, K2. And Everest is here, the highest in the world. The collision of tectonic plates that pushed up the Himalayas also created several smaller mountain ranges in central India, including the Vindhya. Okay, just a second. Vindhya range, and a bit lower. Okay, and to the south lies the Deccan Plateau. Okay, Deccan. So you see, this is Vindhya, and this is Deccan Plateau here. This large tableland tilts east towards the Bay of Bengal and covers much of southern India. Two mountain ranges, the western Ghats and the eastern Ghats, flank this plateau, separating it from the coast. Okay, western Ghats and eastern Ghats. Usually, when we talk about Asian languages and when we transliterate them into English, when we want to make this g sound to be like real g, we add h here. So it's not Ghats, it's Ghats. Okay, so these mountains also block most moist winds and keep rain from reaching the interior. As a result, the Deccan is a largely arid or dry region. We will talk about it in our next video. Now about rivers. The northern Indian plain or Indo-Gangetic plain lies between the Deccan Plateau and the northern mountain ranges. This large lowland region stretches across northern India and into Bangladesh. It is formed by three great river systems: the Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra. So let's find them. Brahmaputra is here. The Ganges River is here. In Bangladesh they meet with Brahmaputra. Okay, and also the Indus River. As you might guess, this Indus River gives the name to the country. The great rivers of South Asia have their origins among the snow-capped peaks of the high Himalayas. So you can see on the map that all of them run from the mountains, from the Himalayan mountains. The Indus flows west and then south through Pakistan to the Arabian Sea. Okay, so here. While the Ganges drops down from the central Himalayas here and flows eastward across northern India, and Brahmaputra winds its way east, then west and south through Bangladesh. The Ganges and Brahmaputra eventually meet to form one huge river delta before entering the Bay of Bengal. And here, guys, I want us to leave this page for a moment and go to page 560 to human environment interaction. And before long, like to make a long story short, we will talk about problems that these rivers suffer from people. Okay. First of all, and it might be important for you, the main religion of most Indians is Hinduism. During one Hindu religious festival, millions of Indians gather near the city of Allahabad, where the Ganges and Yamuna rivers meet. The temporary tent city goes up, complete with markets, temples, and tea houses. People visit the market stalls and pray at their temples. They also watch plays based on Hindu myths and legends. Mainly, though, the Hindus wait for the appointed moment when they will wade into the Ganges and wash their sins away into its holy waters. To Hindus, the Ganges River is not only an important water source, but it is also a sacred river. It is earthly home of the Hindu goddess Ganga. The Ganges is the most well known of all the South Asian rivers. It flows more than 1500 miles from its source in the Himalayas glacier to the Bay of Bengal. Along the way, it drains a huge area nearly 3 times the size of France. This area is home to about 350 million people. Although it's shorter than both the Indus and Brahmaputra rivers, the impact of Ganges on human life in this region is enormous. The Ganges is extremely important for the livelihood of Indians. It provides water for drinking, farming, and transportation. Just as important, though, it is the spiritual significance of this river. The Ganges is known in India as Gangamai, which means Mother Ganges. In Bangladesh, where the Ganges joins Brahmaputra, the river is called the Padma. Okay, so from here, from the spot where two rivers meet, the name of the river is changed to Padma. According to Hindu beliefs, Brahmaputra, the river is called the Padma. Sorry. According to Hindu beliefs, the Ganges is a sacred river that brings life to its people. As we read above, the Hindus worship the river as a goddess, and they believe its waters have healing powers or magical powers to make people well if they are sick. Many temples are sacred sites along the banks of the Ganges. In some places, wide stone steps lead down to water. Pilgrims come from all parts of the world to drink and bathe in its waters. They also come to scatter the ashes of deceased family members on the river. At Varanasi, you can see it in the picture in your book on page 560. Okay, at Varanasi, one of the most sacred sites of the Ganges, thousands of people gather every day. Can you imagine? Every day, thousands of people come to wash. As the sun rises, Hindu pilgrims enter the water for purification and prayer. They float baskets of flowers and burning candles on the water as bells ring and trumpets blow on conch shells. It's a daily celebration, and their faith in the Ganges and its sacred waters. So it's been like that for thousands of years. Can you imagine? And unfortunately for the people of India, the Ganges is in trouble, in great trouble. After centuries of intense human use, it has become one of the most polluted rivers in the world. Millions of gallons of raw sewage and industrial waste flow into the river every single day. The bodies of dead animals float on the water. Even human corpses are thrown into the river. As a result, the water is poisoned with toxic chemicals and deadly bacteria. Thousands of people who bathe in the river or drink the water become ill with stomach or intestinal disease. Some develop life-threatening illnesses such as hepatitis, typhoids, or even cholera. Since 1986, the Indian government has tried to restore the health of the river. Plans have called for a network of sewage treatment plants to clean up the water and for tougher regulations on industrial polluters. So far, however, progress has been slow. Few of the proposed treatment plants are in operation, and factories and cities are still dumping waste into the river. Pollution in the Ganges remains an enormous problem. It will take a great deal of time, effort, and money to clean up the river. It will also require a change in the way people view the river. According to many Hindu believers, the Ganges is too holy to be harmed by pollution. If there is a problem with the water, they believe that Mother Ganges will fix it. Unfortunately, mother Ganges still did nothing. And just as the Ganges is the lifeblood of India, the rivers of Bangladesh are crucial to the country's survival. Many rivers emerge from the Chittagong Hills in the southeast. One of the rivers is the Feni, which flows into the Bay of Bengal just east of the huge delta that makes up most of the southern part of the country. The Feni begins as a small hill stream, but it becomes a wide, slow-moving river by the time it enters the bay. Okay, so we have this Feni River here. Okay, Feni. The Feni flows through a low-lying coastal plains that borders the bay before it reaches the sea. This flat, marshy area is subject to flooding during the wet season. At that time, monsoon rains swell the river and may cause it to overflow its banks. Also a problem are the cyclones that sweep across the Bay of Bengal. They bring high waters called storm surges. Please remember storm surges that swamp low-lying areas. If you look on page 552, you can see how it. You can see. Okay, we will go back to that page later when we are done here. Okay, I will show you. Over the years, storm surges at the mouth of the Feni River have caused tremendous hardship. Sea water surges up the river and onto the coastal flatlands. Villages and fields are flooded, causing great destruction. On smaller streams, villages sometimes build earthen dikes and block the water and protect their farmlands, but such structures are not effective against the flooding of large rivers like Feni. In the 1980s, engineers in Bangladesh proposed building an earthen dam for the Feni. Closing the Feni to build the dam would be very, very difficult. The mouth of the river is nearly a mile wide. Imagine, a wide mile, posing major problems for dam construction. It must be a dam 1 mile long. The cost of building such a dam will be enormous. A poor country like Bangladesh has limited financial and technological resources. Bangladesh did have one key asset for such a project: abundant human resources, because the population of Bangladesh is very high. If they don't have money, at least they have a lot of people to do the work. With its large population, the country had plenty of unskilled workers available for construction work. To help plan the job, Bangladesh hired engineers from the Netherlands, from Holland. And the Dutch have had great experience in flood control, and if you studied geography of Europe before, in the topic which tells you about Netherlands or Holland, you were taught that the country had a lot of problems with water, and they know how to build good, strong dams. From the beginning, in 1984, the project emphasized the use of cheap materials and low-tech procedures. The first step was to lay down heavy mats made of bamboo and reeds weighted with boulders, big stones, big rocks. This was done to prevent erosion of the river bottom. Workers piled more boulders on top and then covered them with clay-filled bags. After 6 months' work, they had built a partial closure across the mouth of the Feni River. At that point, gaps in the walls still allowed water to flow in and out. in and out. Engineers had chosen February 28, 1985, the day of the lowest tides, as the day to close the river. When the tide went out, 15,000 workers rushed to fill in the gaps with clay bags. In a 7-hour period, they laid down 600,000 bags. When the tide came back, the dam was closed. After that, dump trucks and earth movers added more clay to raise the dam to a height of 30 feet. Then workers placed concrete and brick over the sides of the dam and built a road on top. Bangladesh now had the largest estuary, and estuary is an arm of the sea at the lower end of the river, okay? The largest estuary dam in the South Asia. But a crucial question remains: would that dam hold against a major storm? The test came 3 months later, when a cyclone roared into the Bay of Bengal. A storm surge hit the dam, but the dam held. The lands and villages behind the dam were spared the worst effect of the storm. They were saved. The success of the Feni River closure offers hope for similar solutions in other low-lying areas of Bangladesh and South Asia. And from here we are going back to our rivers on page 553. Okay, 553. And again, I invite you to look back on the map that you see on the screen. These rivers, 3 rivers, play a key role, as we said before, in supporting life in South Asia. Their waters provide crucial irrigation for agricultural lands. They also carry rich soil, called alluvial soil, on their journey down from the mountains. When the rivers overflow their banks, they deposit the soil on alluvial plains, lands that are rich farmlands. As a result, the Indo-Gangetic Plain is one of the most fertile farming regions in the world. So, in other words, when these rivers running from the mountains during monsoon seasons have a lot of water and they start flooding, the soil that they bring from the mountains is spread across these green areas here and here. And when the rivers after the monsoon season go back in their beds, yes, we call it the river bed, okay, the soil that was brought from the mountain is scattered everywhere in these regions, here and here, making this land very fertile. The Indo-Gangetic Plain, okay, here is Indo-Gangetic Plain, and this area, even though it is not called Indo-Gangetic, it has the same effect, okay? So the Indo-Gangetic Plain is also the most heavily populated part of South Asia. In fact, the area contains about 3/5 of India's population. Many of the subcontinent's largest cities, including New Delhi and Calcutta in India and Dhaka in Bangladesh, are located there. Population densities at the eastern end of the plain, particularly in the Ganges-Brahmaputra delta, are especially high, as you can see on the map on page 547 here. Okay. To the west, in the area between Indus and Ganges rivers, the plain becomes drier. Here, the plain is pretty dry, and you even see the name. It says Thar Desert. It is not, guys, it is not Thar Desert, it is not Dhar Desert, it is Thar Desert. Because, as I said before, H after many consonants in Asian languages, when transliterated to English, okay, they are not read as we usually read them in English, but they are rather read as strong sounds, like for example, TH is strong T, like T, tar. GH is strong G, like guts. Okay, now, uh, so to the west, in the area between the Indus and Ganges rivers, the plain becomes drier and requires more irrigation. To the south lies one of the world's most arid regions, the Thar, or in other words, the Great Indian Desert. And two more areas of which we didn't talk much, but it's time for them. The islands. Two island groups are also countries of South Asia, namely Sri Lanka, here, and the Maldives, here. And they will be your homework. You will read about them as your homework. But now I will just give some quick review. Sri Lanka is located in the Indian Ocean just off India's southern eastern tip. The Maldives Islands are located further off the Indian coast to the southwest. Okay, here and here. Don't lose them. Sri Lanka is a large tear-shaped island country. It is a lush tropical land of great natural beauty. Domineering the center of the island is a range of high, rugged mountains that reach more than 8,000 feet in elevation. Many small rivers cascade from these mountains to the lowlands below. The northern side of the island consists of low hills and gently rolling farmlands. So, the heart of the island is high, but the borders, the coasts are pretty low and very fertile. The northern side of the island consists of low hills and gently rolling farmland. Circling the island is a coastal plain that includes long, palm-fringed beaches. The Maldives or Maldives archipelago, and archipelago means a lot of islands in one chain. Okay, the island group, as your book says. The Maldives comprise an archipelago or island group of more than 1,200 small islands. These islands stretch north to south for almost 500 miles off the Indian coast near the equator. The islands are the low-lying tops of submerged volcanoes, surrounded by coral reefs and shallow lagoons. This type of island is called an atoll. Atoll. The atoll is an island which in its base is just a huge volcano, which is the top of a volcano. The total land area of the Maldives is 115 square miles. It's just about twice the size of Washington D.C., which means the land, even though there are like 1,200 small islands, they don't have much land. Only about 200 of these islands are inhabited. Now to the natural resources, and for that we need to change the map. Finally, here is the map that we need. Natural resources. The natural beauty of the southern islands is just one of the many physical assets of South Asia. In fact, the subcontinent boasts a wide variety of natural resources that support human life. At the same time, South Asia's rapidly growing population puts great pressure on its land and resources. South Asia relies heavily on its soil and water, as we mentioned before, to provide food through farming and fishing. The great river system that brings alluvial soil down from the mountains help enrich the land, as again we mentioned before. They also bring the water necessary for crops to grow. Both small and large-scale irrigation projects divert the water to the farmlands that need it. Many types of fish are also found in South Asian rivers and coastal waters, including mackerel, sardines, carp, and catfish. South Asian waters also provide a means of transportation and power. Boats travel the rivers and coastlines carrying goods and people from town to town, from city to city. Governments also are working to harness hydroelectric energy from the water. For example, India and Pakistan have a number of hydroelectric and irrigation projects underway. Okay, now, forests. Timber and other forest products are another important resource in South Asia. Rainforests in India produce hardwoods like sal and teak, along with bamboo and fragrant sandalwood. Highland forests in Bhutan and Nepal have thick stands of pine, fir, and other softwood trees. And again, there is a problem. Deforestation is a very big problem there. It causes soil erosion, flooding, landslides, and loss of wildlife habitats. Overcutting has devastated formerly dense forests in India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Okay, the same problem that we already mentioned in Africa, the same problem that they suffer in Latin America, in Brazil, okay, deforestation. When the rainforest, and you know that the rainforests produce a lot of oxygen, the stuff that we need for breathing, okay, these trees are being cut. Instead, like they can't produce oxygen, but carbon dioxide in the air gets more and more, and we have this global warming, guys. Global warming. Much of the South Asia's energy is still generated from mineral resources. For example, India ranks 4th in the world in coal production and has enough petroleum to supply about half its oil needs. India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh also have important natural gas resources. Uranium depositions in India provide fuel for nuclear energy. South Asia also has large iron ore deposits, particularly in India's Deccan Plateau. India is one of the world's leading exporters of iron ore, which is also used in that country's large steel industry. Other South Asian minerals include manganese, gypsum, and chromium, bauxite, and copper. If you look at this map that I'm showing you constantly on this screen, you can see here in the legend the list of natural resources that can be found in India. And if you want to know where in India we can find aluminium, you just find this icon here, here, and here. When you want to know where to get chromium in India, you just find this little trolley on the map. Chromium, chromium, chromium. And coal is here and here and here and here and here and many other. So please, you can pause this video and you can study this map on the screen, or you can do it in your book. Up to you. India supplies most of the world's mica, a key component in electrical equipment. This is one of the reasons that India has a growing computer industry. Mica is also found in Nepal. India and Sri Lanka both have substantial gemstone deposits, and these are the gemstones, right? India is traditionally known for its diamonds, while Sri Lanka produces dozens of types of precious and semi-precious stones. The island of Sri Lanka is most famous for its beautiful sapphires and rubies and tea. Tea is one of the real precious, real treasures that come from Sri Lanka. Okay, so for the moment we are done with landforms, resources of South Asia. Okay, I'm going to show you the homework that is expected of you to be done. Okay, so here you are. First of all, you need to revise this lesson by looking at these pages 551, 55, 560, 63, and you will also read about Sri Lanka and the Maldives, the profiles of these two countries on pages 584, 584, 587. And to make sure that you understood the lesson, do the assessment tasks on pages 555, 63, and 87. Thank you. Bye.